In this video I'm going to go over the methods that I use or have used to process my 4x5 black and white film. So I've got several different methods here that I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go over some of the good aspects of each of them and the negative aspects of each of them. So I'll go ahead and get started. Remove some of this out of the way. The first method that I'm going to go over is tray processing sheet film. Tray processing is probably my least favorite way of doing it, and the one that I would recommend the least of all. So in tray processing, we'd have a series of trays, one for your pre-wash, your developer, your stop bath, and your fixer. And you have to do this entirely in the dark, of course, if you're using panchromatic film. If you're using orthochromatic film, you could do this under red light, but as most of us are using panchromatic film, I'm going to go at it from that approach. So you would have all the lights off, and once you got your chemicals and everything ready, I'm just using one tray to demonstrate here. So you would take your sheets of film out of your holder, and then you would have all of your trays filled with the chemicals, and you would place each individual sheet into the tray, making sure that it was submerged underneath the liquid, and you would have them rotated so they weren't all going in one direction, so you would crisscross them in the tray. And again, this is the least recommended way of developing sheet film in my opinion. So as you put each one in, you would make sure that it's completely submerged, and then you want to rock the tray back and forth in different directions, and then pull up the one that's underneath on the bottom and rotate it to the top, and then turn it so that it's crisscrossed there. Then rock the tray and pull the next one out from below at the bottom, and then crisscross it again. Make sure it's submerged and rock the tray. And you would continue this for the duration of the time and then move to the next tray. The problem that I have found with this method is that being in the dark for the whole time is not the issue. It's the fact that as you're pulling this up, you can scratch your negative along the ones that are still in there as you're rotating them. And I have found that almost always I end up having scratches, or I did have scratches when I would use this method. So it's not a method that I recommend. It may work for some people, but it does not work for me, and so therefore I never use this method. I would use this method if I were doing a single sheet and wanted to do stand development. Stand development being where you're going to place the sheet in, agitate it briefly, and then let it set for a long period of time in the developer, just to give it higher acutance and so forth. A lot of people use that with Rodinol. So I do use that method with the tray method with stand development, but that is the only method that I would ever use it with. So I'll set that off to the side. The next method that I want to go over is the Mod 54. The Mod 54 uses a Patterson four-reel tank in order to place it in, and so the idea behind this is that you would use the tank here. You've got your center column that it's important that goes in because that's your light baffle, and you place that into the core of the Mod 54 and then place it into the tank itself with both lids being in place, and then you would agitate either you would use the rotating spindle that it comes with, or some people would agitate in the inversion method as such, making sure to tap twice to dislodge any air bubbles. Now, loading the actual Mod 54 I have actually found to be quite difficult. Some people might be able to do this well. I have found it to be quite difficult, so I'll talk about that. So on these methods, you want the emulsion side to be facing in. The way that you find the emulsion side, it's on the upper right hand corner of the film here, and so you want to make sure that's facing in. Now the idea is that you pinch the film and then you place it into here, and there's a series of slots that it fits into. And so the idea is you fit it into one slot. You do this in the dark, of course, and then you take the other sheet and you put it into the next slot here, and then you take the third sheet, put it into the next slot. As such, the film is curled there, and then you would rotate to the other side and put in an additional 3. Now the method that the reason why I dislike this, and I've found it very difficult to load, and I'm sure there's several people out there that don't have a problem with this, but I seem to have a difficulty with this. In the dark, it's very difficult. The first sheet is not hard to load to get it into the proper slot there. But I have found that when you're loading the subsequent, the next sheets, it's hard and it's difficult to not get the sheet, to make sure that the sheet is in its own individual slot. There's no guides or anything. I mean, sure, you can check it with your fingers here, but I have tried to load this and I've struggled a lot getting it into the individual partitions and slots that are allotted. And obviously you don't want your film sticking together. So I have found the Mod 54 to be not the most reliable in terms of loading. If you do load it properly, it does a great job when you develop it. So the Mod 54 is a good method, but does definitely take a learning curve on loading, and you have to be especially careful that it hits into each individual slot so the chemicals can get in between the film and develop it properly. Now the next method that I'm going to go over here, I'll set that off to the side, is the Jobo. This is a Jobo 2521. This is a rotary process drum. On the edges here, where this orange band is, you pull up on it, and this will release it so you can open it. And then you take the lid off. Inside you will find the reel with the white baffle spindle again. And then it has the film retaining, I call them wings, but I don't know what the actual proper term is, but the film retaining clips or wings here. And then you also have a loader base for it. And this is so that you can properly feed the film into the individual channels of the actual reel. So, how you load the film on, you do this in the dark, of course. So, there are some individual slots here, and you have to make sure those are oriented the proper way. This moves. This is your film guide. So the film guide, you place the spool over the spindle and then sort of push the guide out of the way and then push down on the spool. Then you rotate it until you hear the first click. Then you take your film and you would do emulsion side in on this, so you locate the emulsion, which is by the notch codes. The emulsion, if the notch codes are in the upper right hand corner, then the emulsion is facing you, so you feed it in, you place it onto the guide, and then I sort of use my hand here to feed it onto the actual, into the actual channel for the film. Oh, see, sometimes it doesn't work all the time. That one didn't feed properly, so I'll try again. And then pull it around, and there we are. So it's now in the proper channel. I click to the next channel, and then I place in the next sheet of film. And then go to the third channel on this side and place in the third sheet of film. And I sort of use my hand here to guide it as it goes back in. And then I always check it by feeling here that there's a gap where it's necessary between each piece of film. And there is there. And then I rotate to the opposite side, which there's 3 more on the opposite, 3 more channels on the opposite side. This loads 6 sheets of film. And then I will continue to put those on one at a time, and then go to the next channel, and so on and so forth. After all of the film is loaded onto it, you will sort of push out on the actual guide itself, and then pull the reel off of the base. Then you have to take the film retaining clips, or wings as I call them, And there are some small notches here. I don't know if you can see them, but there's some small notches right here and right here that this fits into. So you place them in. You have to do this in the dark. And the idea is that they fit on like that. So this helps the film from pulling out of the channels, and also it helps the agitation method of it. I have found that without these, I don't know if this is the reason that Jobo created them, but I have a feeling it's one of them. One is to stop the film from coming out. The other one is that without them, as you're rotating this, the developer or the chemicals can go into the small channel here, and it creates the Venturi effect where it speeds up as it goes into that channel, and it creates a flow pattern at the edges and some uneven development. So for me, it helps create some turbulence in the actual developing tank when developing it, and it helps keep your film on there. So you're going to take this column or the spindle here, place it into it, and then place it down into the tank itself. Place the lid on and push the outer ring all the way down. Now, this is meant for use with a Jobo film processor. I actually had a Jobo film processor. I did not use it that much because I mainly do black and white, and I have found that my chemical temperatures stay pretty stable or stable enough with black and white as long as the ambient room temperature isn't too extremely hot or extremely cold. So I actually traded my Jobo processor for a lens that I use with my 8x10 camera. And that was a good trade. I'm happy with it. So what I do with this method is I've built a sort of a film developing board here. The film developing board was just one that I had went to the hardware store, found a plank of wood, some caster wheels here, and then just used some shims to get this end up to where it needed to be. So you pour the chemicals into here. Now this method actually is pretty good because it doesn't take nearly as much chemicals to develop. This takes probably about realistically about 600 milliliters to develop 6 sheets of film, which is actually not very much. It's a very small amount of chemicals to develop that much film. So you're going to pour your chemical into this area here, the opening, pour them in, and then I rotate it onto my platform here. And then the chemicals then are sort of developing the film as it rotates down and throughout it like this. So the idea is that you're going to spin this in a, not too fast, not too slow, but you have to go at least 380 degrees when spinning this. So you want to make sure you go at least a full revolution and then a little bit more. And I wouldn't go extremely fast like this. I wouldn't go extremely fast, and I wouldn't go extremely slow. I just go at a nice, even, measured pace. It's important that you repeat the that you develop a certain rotation that you always stick to for predictable results when developing film. So you would just do this for the entire duration of the film development time, or the time for whichever chemical that you're developing in, making sure to go at least 380 degrees. And so that's that method there. That's a nice handy method. I do use that from time to time, especially if I am doing color development. Like I said, I don't really do a lot of that. Color development is a lot more specific on the actual temperature range that you must stay within. But I use that a lot for black and white. It's a really good method. So the Jobo 2521 tank, excellent, and you can just build a little base that you can rotate it on. So I'm going to move on to the next method. The next method that I have, I've got to get the film out of this tank so I can show the next method. I'm just going to take the sheets out there. And I'll place this off to the side. So the next method that I'm going to go over is the Jobo Expert drum for 4x5. This is the 3010 or the 3010 Expert drum. The Expert drum is Jobo's answer to solving the problem of any development issue that may arise when developing agitation and so forth. The Expert drum holds 10 sheets of 4x5 film, and the film goes into these individual cylinders, and there is sort of a, I don't know if you can see it, but there's sort of a two little bars in here that inhibit the film from going to the other side of the chamber, so two films can go in here. Again, you want the emulsion side to face in, so you take the film and you curl it, and you place it down into its individual side of the chamber. So you want to make sure that that film is, sorry, I'm doing this upside down. Let me do this here. So you place it in the dark, down into the chamber. And what I do is I always run my finger down in the chamber just a little bit to make sure that it is within the confines of those two little indents that hold the film on this side of the chamber. Then take another one, make sure that it's emulsion side in, and you would place that into the other side of that chamber, making sure that it is fully in there. So it's down in there. And then you would continue that method in each of the chambers that you would use. And this would fit 10 sheets of film. And of course you have to do this in the dark, so you have to really make sure that I would practice any of these methods if you've never used them before in the light before you go into the dark. After you've loaded all of the sheets that you're going to develop, you take the lid and you place it onto the top of it, making sure that it's down 100%, all the way down. And this actually will also needs to be rotated. It's a rotary process, just like the previous smaller Jobo rotary tank, but this is an Expert drum. So I've built another base for that. That can also be used on a Jobo processor, but I built a different base for this. Basically it's the same thing. It just had to be slightly different because of the size of the drum itself. So the idea there is you pour in the chemicals. Again, it uses very little amount of chemicals. This one you can develop 10 sheets of film. I usually use 1 full liter in here to do 10 sheets, but to be honest with you, a liter is probably more than you actually need to cover it. So you pour the chemicals in and then tip it and then rotate it on the drum itself. And so the chemicals are down here and the film is rotating into it. It's entering in the chamber, and each individual chamber has a complete chaotic movement of the fluid, so there is no chance for flow patterns or anything like that. It's pretty much a 100% foolproof way of developing film to get 100% even development. So that is the Jobo Expert Drum 3010. Excellent way. I use that quite a bit, but it's not the one I use the most. So I'll set that off to the side. I've actually left my foot pump downstairs, or a hand pump or foot pump. To get this off, you have to build internal pressure into the drum, and so it pops the lid off. You do that by taking a hand pump or a foot pump and placing it into this area here, and then you press down. Now, for a long time I actually didn't have a hand or foot pump, and to be honest with you, you can get the drum off just like this. It's kind of silly, but you just blow into it and it pops up and off. That was a method I used for a long time. So if you have a chance to get an Expert drum and can't get the foot pump, you can just blow into the opening there and build up pressure, and it pops the lid right off. So I'll remove the film there. Jobo Expert drums can be kind of expensive. They are worth it, so if you are looking into a method and you want one that's going to last you, and I mean, unless you crack the tank or something, it'll last you a lifetime, they are definitely worth the money. Now, the final method that I want to talk about is actually the one that I use the most. The Combi Plant is the Combi Plant 4x5. It's a pretty interesting method. People either love this or they hate it. I have found that I really like this method, and I get 100% flawless negatives from it every time. I have no problem whatsoever. I've actually never had a problem with the negatives on this. So it's built, it has your tank here with a pour out spout and a cap that goes onto that pour out spout there. It has the lid itself, which the lid has a screw. The spout where you pour in the chemicals actually comes off entirely. You would not remove this when developing film, or otherwise light would enter in there, but it's light baffled. But you do have to twist that to get the chemical in there so that you can allow air to be released as the chemical enters. It has another cap on the top where you then pour in the chemicals. You use this little cup here to pour in the chemicals. You place it onto the top like that, and then you pour the chemicals in there after you've twisted this to the open position a little bit so that air can escape out of the tank. So you would have it like this here, and then you would pour the chemicals in. So I'm going to go over that a little bit more, but we'll go over some of the other apparatus parts to this. Okay, so this is where the film goes on to this piece right here. It comes with these little guides, and these guides are used to place onto the film here. And you can do this when the light's on. You can get everything prepped and ready with the lights on. And so each side you place a guide. Now when you place the film on, you take and you put the emulsion side. Actually, on this one I put the emulsion side facing out when I place this in. I don't think it really matters if you place it in or out on this method, but what I'll do is I will locate the first one, which is on the back here, and then I will slowly place down the actual sheet of film. This is kind of difficult when I'm not doing it facing me, so I'm going to face it toward me, and then I will... Okay, so the first one is now in. Now for the next ones, what I do is I take and I sort of just drag the film on this guide just a little bit, and I count. So there's the first slot, the second slot, and that's the one I want to go into because I've already put one in the first one. So there we go. And then I go to the third slot and place it down in. And then I check to see that each one is in its own individual slot. And then you take up the guide itself. Okay, and then you rotate it so that you can place film onto the next side. And you just repeat the process there. So find the first slot, then move it up to find the second slot, and then finally the third slot. After you have them in each of their individual slots, remove the guide for this side, and then you want to put on this little film retaining clip. The film retaining clip has a little tiny teeth here that keep the film separated from each other. There are actually two types of clips that I wanted to go over. I don't know if you can see it, but this clip has lots of tiny little teeth on it. Lots of tiny little teeth. And that is not recommended. It will work, but they changed the design later to only have these two teeth on there so that each of the 3 sheets of film have their own individual slot. This method, it's possible for the film to sort of stick together because they're fitting in, they have too many options for the teeth. So the ones with a lot of teeth I don't recommend. So the film retaining clip goes onto the top here, this top portion, and it sort of clicks down. You want to click it down. I usually click it down about 3 clicks. And so the idea, and then I check the film. in the dark. With my fingers, I make sure that it's all where it should be in their own individual slots. And so the idea is that the film sits like that then. Then you take the actual, where the film sits there, and you place it into the tank. Then you take the lid. Make sure that the lower drain spout cover is on, so that when you pour chemicals in, it doesn't spill everywhere. You're doing this in the dark. Then you take your lid and you place it over the top, making sure it's all the way down over all the edges. That's important. You don't want one side to be up a little bit like this and then light to be able to enter when you come out. Oh yeah, all of these you can process your film in the daylight or out in room light, except for the tray processing. So this, after you've got your film in there and the lid on, you're ready to come out in the light. Then again, once you've got your chemicals set up, you want to rotate this. Don't unscrew it the whole way, because then light would come in, but you just need to open it a little bit so that air can evacuate out of that chamber. Then take the top off here. And you want to take your little cup and place the cup onto the top so that here you can pour your chemicals into that. It takes about 40 ounces to fill this entire chamber. Now, like I said, some of the expert drums and the rotary processing methods like this, they take much less chemicals. So if chemical economy is something that's on your mind, the rotary processing Jobo tanks might be something for you to look into. But the Combi plan has never gone wrong with me, and so I have to fill it with a few more chemicals. It's not a big deal to me. I really like this method. So you pour the chemicals into here. It takes about 30 seconds to fill. Some people have said that because it takes so long to fill, it might cause a problem with uneven development and stuff. Never had that problem. I actually endorse this method of film development for your 4x5 100%. So after the chemicals have filled, you take the cup, remove it, and then make sure to twist this and close that so that the liquid, when you invert the tank, cannot come out. Place the cap onto the top and then start your development. Now, the way that I agitate this tank, or the way that you agitate it, is important. You want to go like this, side to side, and then tap it twice or 3 times to dislodge air bubbles. You never want to go like this. Don't tip it this way, because this can put pressure on the sheets of film and dislodge them. So do not go this direction when you agitate. Only go this direction when you agitate. Now, and then tap it twice. Then when you're ready to drain that particular chemical, twist this to the open position so it will allow air to enter now, and then take off the bottom portion here, and then liquid will start to pour out and the air will be able to come in. If you forget to twist this, and open it, then air can't enter and it pours out very slowly. So it'll take another 30 seconds to drain it also. Then make sure to put the drain cap back on, or otherwise when you put in the next chemical, it's just going to pour out. Then take your cup again, place it onto the top, and begin to pour in the next chemical. And just repeat that procedure until you're all the way done with your fixer, and then you can remove the lid. So this is the Combi Plant 4x5 developing tank. It's an excellent developing tank. Some people actually don't trust it and they don't like to do the inversion method with it, so they will actually purchase more than one tank. The reason I have so many tanks is because I like this method so much that I want to be able to have spare parts and backup, because they do not, unfortunately, make this anymore. And some of the little pieces, like the film retaining clip here, are actually quite fragile. So I have several of these. But the people who don't trust this in terms of inversion, which again, I highly endorse this method even for the inversion method, so go ahead and try it if you're interested. But some people, what they will do is they will take 3 tanks, and they'll have, you know, their developer, their stop bath, and their fixer. And so they will take the developer and they will do a sort of a dip and dunk method of developing, where they dip it in and then allow it to drain off, and dip it in and allow it to drain off. And then when they're done with the full development time, they go to the stop bath, and then when they're finished with that, they go over to the fixer. I do not find this method of using the Combi Plant 4x5 at all necessary. I did want to show you that, though. The reason again why I have these is just for spare parts. So this is the methods that I use or have used to develop 4x5 film. I hope that you found this informative, and thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.